Duran Duran embraced the night with their new themed album Danse Macabre. I talked to Simon Le Bon and John Taylor about surviving and thriving 40 years on. I think it's fair to say that 42 years ago, when I bought their debut album, I didn't expect to one day be interviewing Duran Duran on Radio 4. But they are rock's great survivors. They've gone from cutting-edge new romantics through teen idols to respected musicians still able to draw vast crowds at arenas around the world and at landmark events such as the 2012 Olympics, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and last year's Commonwealth Games in their home city of Birmingham. Their 16th studio album, Danse Macabre, is loosely based around the theme of Halloween, and it features 4 of the classic Duran Duran lineup that burst onto the scene with Planet Earth back in 1981. Simon Le Bon, John Taylor, Nick Rhodes and Roger Taylor. It consists of 3 new tunes, 3 reworkings of old tracks and a number of cover versions of songs by acts as diverse as the Rolling Stones, the Specials, Talking Heads and Billie Eilish. I asked bass player John Taylor and lead singer Simon Le Bon what was behind the concept.
Nick Rhodes was behind the concept of Danse Macabre, I would say.
Yeah, we did a show in Vegas last Halloween, and Nick, definitely, he's the Halloween fan, and it was decided that we would do it both in fancy dress and that we would choose some songs from the Halloween playlist and play them that night. And, you know, Duran Duran we've got an unusual way of playing songs. We wouldn't just show up to a sound check and say, let's learn this song. We actually had to go into the studio, record the songs, everybody refines their parts, and then it's like, once we got a finished mix, we were like, that's how we're going to play them on stage. So having done the show, the following day, we're like, wow, we've got these recordings of like 7 cover songs that we were pretty excited about, actually. We were in road mode, so everybody was playing. Simon was singing in really fine form. So we were like, we've got to do something with these. And then really over the next couple of months, it became an album project.
There are 3 new tracks on the album, aren't they? Including Black Moonlight, which features Nile Rodgers, who you've worked with many times before. Yeah. Tell me about that track in particular.
Nile came into the studio. We had nothing. We just knew that we wanted to do something up-tempo and danceable. And that is Nile Rodgers' thing. And Niall came in the studio. We chatted for about 10 minutes and he says, right, come on, let's just start. So we did. And John and Niall started playing and they very soon came up with this riff, which I started singing over. And suddenly Niall says, that's it, that's the chorus. And we all went, whoa, hang on, we've just started. Don't we need to try a few more ideas out? He went, no. He says, you just get right on this one. He says, sometimes the first thing you do can be the best thing you do. And we went, OK, well, we trust Nile. He came up with the title, Black Moonlight. We came up with all the other lyrics between us. I mean, I remember Nick would be shouting out, move till we're out of sight. And then you'd say something like, alive in the dead of night. And I'd be going, no, I'm trying to write it all down here. and I had the luxury of writing the verses myself.
It was quite different, wasn't it? Because typically when we go into the studio to create a new song, we have no idea. We actively encourage each other to come in empty-headed. Yeah. Don't come to a session with a specific idea, because that'll sort of take away from the moment where we come together and we all start playing together and something magical, we hope, happens. But quite often we can be sitting on grooves, progressions, bits and pieces of music for weeks, sometimes even months before Simon defines what's it about. With these 3 songs in this 4 days, we had this concept, the spooky concept. So Simon kind of had an area to work in, and it really helped. I don't think we've written songs that quickly since perhaps the first week we worked together.
I don't think not even then.
Yeah,
really?
This was the fastest ever. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I just think because you get to a certain point in your career and your life, and you sort of get a little bit cavalier about things, and you just think, oh God, do we have to really go through all the analysis and the kind of going over it again and again? Because actually, when you do that, you just trample so many of the fresh little shoots that come up when you're inspired, and you just think, come on, just let it go, release, and get it down on the. I was going to say on the tape, but, well, in the machine. Get it down in the machine. And it worked.
Yeah, well, when you say you remember the days when you actually did put things down on a tape, there is something fascinating about hearing your enthusiasm, the fact that you seem all to get on so well at this stage in your career when you have been together. It is 40
We have
years.
something very special.
Yeah.
We've learned something, and that is we've learned to hang on to our love and passion for music. We still get that thrill that I know when I went to see punk bands in the 1970s. I still get the same kind of thrill when I hear new music that it excites me, especially if it's new music that we're working on.
Well, one of the interesting things is how you use cover versions, and you've done it before on a number of albums. And on here, you've taken things like Ghost Town by the Specials, for example. And I've just been reading this new history of two-tone, which talks about, and I do think 1979 is the most exciting year in pop music in many ways. But new romanticism coming in from the same region, Coventry, Birmingham, was something kind of a challenge to what was going on with Ska. Tell me about that track and the choices.
Ghost Town was probably the most sacred cow of all the songs that we chose.
Yes.
But the fact that Terry had just passed away, really a couple
Terry
of
Hall.
months before we took it on, I think gave it a sense of, of respect, that we had to do this and we had to do it right. And the day that I heard Simon's vocal, and I was like, oh my God, I love what you've done. And he was like, oh, I'm so glad you like it. I wanted to be, you'd considered the Coventry, the Midlands, what this song was and geographically where it was from, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You really, really thought about that. It was very important to honour that.
This town is coming like a ghost town.
The other thing is, I think that, in the moment, in 1979, you wouldn't have found two more disparate bands than Duran Duran and the Specials. But now, in time, you just see 10 kids that love music.
Yeah.
And 6 of them form the Specials, and 5 of them, actually that's 11, but 5 of them form Duran Duran, essentially. And you would find that, back in the time where you would probably do Top of the Pops, where you would meet lots and lots of other artists all the time, and you'd realise, well, we're not the same style at all, and we're kind of coming from a different, but we're so similar. Kids that are just drawn to making music.
It's funny, the kind of rivalry thing that was in the press at the time as well. Some people really subscribed to that in real life. I never did.
I'm interested in the press coverage as well, because looking back at the early years of your career, partly because you also had a very large following among teenage girls, I got a sense that the music press regarded you as not a serious band.
Well, I think at the time, the music press didn't regard teenage girls as a serious audience.
They still don't, really.
You think so? But definitely we kind of were disadvantaged in their eyes by that. We, of course, didn't give a toss. We learned very early on not to read our reviews.
I mean, we never set out to be, we thought we would be a niche-y kind of underground alternative band before anybody was using that term. But that's really what we thought we would be. We had no notion that we were going to become this other thing.
What I think was happening was that the gateway into music was changing, where in the 70s it had been very much the music press, the papers, the NME. That was changing, and people were seeing much more music on television, on screens, and access to music was becoming freer. The Sony Walkman came out. People could walk around listening to their own stuff instead of having to basically inflict what they like on everybody else in the street or in the house, or listen to what was being inflicted upon them.
It is interesting. I mean, even now, I mean, a lot of people in the intelligentsia just don't understand Taylor Swift, for instance. They just don't understand how she's somehow connected with an audience that is so vast. And I think that time in particular, and girls are important, that time in particular, there was a pop audience that just came of age.
Pop music is taken seriously now in a way that it wasn't regarded seriously.
You're right. It absolutely
40
is.
Years ago.
Because it's... I think there was always, I suppose, when it started in the 50s and 60s, people were thinking this is just a flash in the pan. We'll all be listening to classical music again in 10 years' time. But it hasn't.
I think streaming has actually had a very positive effect on rebranding older rock music. And the power of companies like Spotify and Apple, to put billboards of the Beatles out on Piccadilly Circus and make them look like the coolest band that you've never heard of,
Clearly, pop music isn't going away, and it isn't going away, so you might as well take it seriously.
Well, the other interesting thing is the way that the press, and this is more the national press, tried to impose politics. And I think Duran Duran had the experience, because you made these very glossy-looking videos.
Yeah.
I got the sense that you were labelled as yuppies.
Oh, and the Thatcherist band.
Yeah.
That's what we were labelled as. And I think very, very mistakenly or unfairly so. And, we didn't want anything to do with party politics at all. We thought they all sucked.
I want to ask about your status now, because you've performed at the 2012 Olympics concert, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham last year. How do you reflect on your status? Are you national treasures now?
I don't know about national treasures. We're definitely rock legends, though.
I'll take it.
Is there a sense of survival is the best revenge?
Well, I yes, and you said it, so I'm all I can do is agree with you.
Tell me about revisiting some of that early music on this new album.
Well, I think it really started with what was originally Waiting for the Night Boat, which has now become just Night Boat on Danse Macabre. The approach to the harmonic structure of the song is very different. Nick and our engineer Josh really made an incredible sound bed, which the rest of us really kind of highlighted with what we do, whether it's the bass or the vocal or the drums. And it really brought something very new to that song, made it very current. It suddenly showed us if you take a simple song, you can sometimes do incredible things with it.
You have been around since the days when tours were to promote albums, and now it's the other way around. And I wonder what you think of that whole shift in the way a band builds a career.
Well, it's not just about building a career, it's also how you make your money. We're doing this as a job.
I think there's more to it than that, though. The thing about the four of us, and was the five of us, but the four of us now, is that we all bring out the absolute best in each other. I could go and play with you two tomorrow and I'd look like a moron. I could go and play, Simon could sing with some of the band. He would not. We bring out the best. We've developed our individual styles alongside each other. We are like the most serious versions of ourselves when we're playing with each other.
Yeah, you're right. No, it's really true. It's kind of like we've learned to complement each other, rather than compete with each other.
Andy Taylor's playing on this.
Yes,
so tell us about that, Andy Taylor being back.
Well, we were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last November, and we announced and we found out that Andy was suffering from stage 4 prostate cancer, and that really brought him into our minds. And we started thinking, when we were making this album, especially when we look back at the tunes that the Duran tunes that we were going to redo, we decided we need to get Andy playing on this record. We need to get Andy playing with us again. So we recorded 7 guitar tracks in 2 days. The guy is on fire. He's amazing. He's receiving treatment and he's now symptom-free, which is an amazing thing.
I just wonder, is there something about the live experience which is always going to be important to you? Do you see yourself ever retiring?
Oh my God, you're not kidding. I mean, it's an incredible thing to do, to get up on stage and play this music that you love, that you are invested in, that you created, to people, and see that it makes a difference to their lives. And as long as we can do it, we will do it.
The very enthusiastic Simon Le Bon and John Taylor of Duran Duran. Their new album, Danse Macabre, is out now.